Dear brothers, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. As we have been learning in the previous sessions, we're talking about the divisions of different kinds of words, Arabic words, kalama. Now, earlier we have learned uh, the, uh, the scale, Ozanul Kalimat, and I've explained why they are necessary. Inshallah, in the next session after this one, we're going to learn about the advantages of uh, the Ozan al-Kalimat that we have learned before, and you'll find them very useful. But today, it's going to be the continuation of the previous lectures on the different kinds of words and their divisions, and how they are divided into different forms. And also, today we're going to also talk about a little bit about the rules and regulations, um, like why these words change.
Assalamu alaikum. No voice.
There's no voice, somebody was saying. Yes.
Yeah, Jan, voice is working. Hassan Raza sir, please cross-check your audio connectivity. Or maybe just relog in.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. As I was saying, that today we're also going to learn not just about the division of the different kinds of words, but we're also going to learn a little bit about the rules and regulations of why some of the rules and regulations about why these words have changed into other words. Now, if you can share, Brother Jafri, the page that I've shared with you on the screen, please, you will see that the words that have the tendency to change are a few words, and they have been named. You see, these words that have the tendency to change are called kalamate mu'arizat taghyir. Taghyir means change. Now, we have learned in the past the different kinds of words like mu'tal and sahih, mahmuz, ghair mahmuz, muzaf, and ghair muzaf. Now today we're going to learn the words that have the capability or the tendency to change. All words in Arabic do not change into different words, but many of the words, only if they have the tendency to change into other words, only then they will change. Today we are going to discuss the words that have the letters which bring about the change. You see, the first thing that we want to learn today is that we have learned about the kalama mu'attal. Now, if in a word, the root word, if it is a kalama mu'attal, and kalama mu'attal, as you've already learned, it is waw, alif, and ya. Once they change into different word, then this process is called i'lal. I'lal. Alif and lam, alif, lam, as you can see on the screen. I'lal comes from the word illa, which in Arabic means to become sick. Like maybe perhaps the word ill or illness comes from this Arabic word. I don't know, but illa means sickness. So once you're fine, and the other instance, God forbid, you become sick, you become ill. So therefore, the words that have huruf illa in them, kalamat al-mu'attal, they have the tendency to change because they have these three letters in them, right? And that process is called i'lal. And if you have mahmuz, a kalama mahmuz, that kalama mahmuz, why is it called mahmuz? As you have already learned, because if in a word one of the root letters is a hamza, then that word is called mahmuz. And because of that mahmuz, because of being word that is called mahmuz, because of the hamza in it, it has a tendency to change into another word. And when it is changed into the other word, that process in itself is called takhfif. Likewise, the third category is of muza'af. Now, if you find huruf mushaddad to be root letters in a word, and they are of the two letters which are of the root letters, and also of the same kind and next to each other, in Salafi Mujarrad, for example, they have the tendency to change into other words. And that process in itself is called idgham. Idgham is the process when a word is changed from one word to another, because it consists of huruf mushaddad, which are obviously, as you've already learned, two letters of the same kind next to each other in thulathi mujarrad. Yeah. Now we're going to learn i'lal, the different processes. Now we're going to learn the rules. We have already learned what happens, but we do not know why it happens. Now we're going to learn why it happens. There are three kinds of ilal, three kinds of processes in kalama mu'attal. In kalama mu'attal, there are three kinds of ilal. And each of those three different kinds of processes also have a name. The first one is called ilal qalbi. Qalb, of course, means in Arabic heart, right? So going by the name, you would understand that it talks about the changing of letters, because the word only consists of letters. So once it talks about i'lal qalbi, it means that they're going to be changing, they're going to be a change of letters, and that change of letters will be a process, and it will go through under special rules and regulations of Arabic language, which is called i'lal qalbi. Now, what is the rule of i'lal qalbi? I've given an example. If you can zoom in to that word qawala, you will see that in qawala, waw is maftuh, right? And the letter before waw is also maftuh, because waw, now that's the rule that you must remember. If you find the harf illa, waw is harf illa, qawala is kalama mu'attal, right? Now this waw carries a sign on it, and that sign is fath, right? Zabar. And the letter also carries that sign, because the harf illa and the previous letter carry the sign zabar or fath on it. Therefore, waw will always change into alif. Therefore, qawala will always become qala. That is rule number 1 of i'lal. Now, rule number 2 of i'lal is i'lal sakuni. Sakun, as you know, sakun means silent in Arabic. So we know we are going to talk about the vowel signs. As you can see on your screen, and if you can zoom into it, you see the word yaqwulu. And that word has changed into yaqulu. Right? Yaqulu. Now, this process of changing from one word to another has a rule in it. It hasn't just changed like that. The previous rule you have learned. Now, this rule is another rule, and this rule is called i'lal sakuni. If you see in yaqwulu, the waw carries the dham sign, pesh, what you call in Urdu. And the previous one is silent. Right? Waw is harf illa and carries a dhamma sign on it. And if the previous letter is silent, then what do? You swipe the vowels from the previous letter to this letter. For example, as you can see, what has happened in yaqwulu, it has turned into yaqulu. As you can see, as we have already learned in the previous session, that pesh or dham is a friendly vowel sign, or it is related to waw. And if you find waw to be silent, then, and the previous letter is dham, then what you do, you have to swipe both of those signs on the letters. You see, in yaqwulu, qaf was silent and the waw was dham. And now it's going to be done. We're going to swipe it, and both of them are going to exchange. Qaf was silent, qaf becomes dham. Waw has dham on it, and now that's become silent, right? So it's the opposite. Vice versa. You have changed the letter, the signs of this letter from the first word to another, as you can see on the screen. It's very easy. So yaqulu becomes, yaqwulu becomes yaqulu. Right. Now, as you can see, that we have learned the 3 types of i'lal on our screen, right? The first one, as I'll explain again, the 3 types of changes. We're discussing the 3 types of changes that occur in a word because of the letters that exist in that word. It doesn't mean that they always have to change, but sometimes it is a must, they must change. When it is a must, there is a rule. Sometimes it is optional. We're going to learn that in the next lesson. But today we're going to talk about we're talking about the letters that have the tendency to change. And those letters you have already learned are huruf illa, hamza, and huruf mushaddad. So the first one we have learned is kalama mu'attal. And now kalama mu'attal, as you've already learned, is waw, alif, and ya. Once you find that to be root letter, if harf illa is a root letter in a word, and that word has changed into another, that process is called i'lal, which is divided into 3 different kinds of rules. The rule number one is ilal qalbi. Ilal qalbi means that if, for example, there is a uh, friendly vowel sign on a harf illa, and you have already learned in waw, it is the friendly or the sign related to waw is dam, and kasra is related to ya, and alif or hamza, with hamza it is. But over here we see qawala has changed into qala. There is a rule, and the rule is that if there is a fath before a waw, and also that waw, obviously because it's a harf illa, waw and the previous one, both of them carry this fath sign, that waw will always remember that. It will always change into qala. So if you see, the next time you see a word qala, for example, قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم, قال إمام الصادق عليه السلام, right? If you read a hadith, you would know that qala came from the word qawala, and this has changed through a process, and that process is called ilal qalbi. Waw has changed into alif for a reason, and that rule has been explained. The second one I said is hazfi. Ilal hazfi, and ilal hazfi is qawl becomes qul. I missed that, sorry, but I'm going to say it now. Hazfi. Hazfi, obviously, as you know, that has in Arabic means deletion or omission. So you know that if there is an omission, it is through a rule, and that rule sometimes is sama'i, and sometimes it is qiyasi. Qiyas is when there's a certain rule and regulation, a formula, a scientific or a mathematical formula, like I've explained in ilal qalbi. If that exists, it's called qiyasi. But if there is no rule, and you have just learned from the word of mouth from Arabs, as it has come from us from the Arabs, then it is called sama'i. And you see that in ilal hazfi, this is sama'i. Qawl becomes qul. Or for example, is'al, fas'alu ahla dhikr in kuntum ta'alamun. The verse in Quran you must have remembered. Fas'alu, is'alu, fas'alu, is'alu ahla dhikr. Now that is'al becomes sal. Like over here, qawl becomes qul. There's no hard and fast rule about this. There is no rule. Why? There is no explanation why, except other than the Arabs have done it, and it has come into their language, and that language has become part and parcel of Quran, and also the hadith, and also the modern day language that we use today on television, radio, or whatever. So this rule is sama'i. All becomes qul. And the third rule that I had explained is i'lal sakuni. Sakun in Arabic means silent. So therefore we understand that we're going to talk about the vowel signs. And over here there is a rule. It's not qiyasi. I'm sorry, it's not sama'i, it is qiyasi. There is a formula. There is a scientific way of looking at it. Arabic is a scientific language, and there are formulas in it. And this is a formula number 3 of the kalama mu'tal, and the process is ilal, you know. So the third rule is that if you find in a word, like for example, yaqulu, wow, has a dam on it, and the previous letter was silent, those two, on these two letters, as you can see on your next word, the word next to it, they have swiped into each other. It will always happen. Whenever you see that the formula. You always have to follow this rule. If you find, for example, yaqwulu, which is equal to yaf'ulu, right? Now, yaf'ulu, fa'ul fail was what? Silent. And ainul fail was, as you can see, carries a bomb sign. As you've already learned, because it is a friendly sign, the previous one was silent, and waw has a friendly sign on it. This is going to change into yaqulu. And now the second type is mahmuz, the kalama mahmuz. And in ilal, you have to understand the process of ilal. This has occurred in kalama mu'attal. This process in ilal. In kalama sahih, if you find a kalama sahih, and you've learned that if a kalama does not carry the word, the letters, for example, the root letters are not harf illa, then that word is called sahih. So a change of process in kalama sahih never occurs. Likewise, in ghayr mahmuz and ghayr muza'af, that never happens. Now, for example, mahmuz, and the second example is mahmuz, which is takhfif. The process is called takhfif. And the third one, muza'af, is called, the process is called idgham. Now, mahmuz, the second example that we've given, I've given you the example, like for example, is'al, fas'alu ahla zikr. You find the hamza, and that hamza also changes into silent, and it becomes sal. Yeah, over there you find that you might say that this is also takhfif. Well, that's not takhfif. We're going to discuss that in the next lesson, inshallah. But today we just want to learn that the mahmuz, if there is a hamza in a word, and that word carries a hamza sign, which is of course you know, the root letter, and also that root letter is hamza, then you know that it is kalama mahmuz, and that if there is a change in it from one word to another, we're going to discuss that in the next lesson, inshallah, because we've run out of time. That process is called takhfif. And if last but not the least, mudha'af, if you find huruf mushaddad, two letters of the same kind, if you find them next to each other, and you know they are of course the root letters, then that process of changing is called idgham. Now, what are the rules for mahmuz and mudha'af? We're gonna inshallah discuss in the next lesson, and that would be inshallah on Sunday, inshallah. So inshallah, that's it for today, and I hope if there are any questions, I'm ready to answer them. Yes?
Then I have a question, if I may ask.
No. Yes, please do.
Yes, so in the due course of the process of change, lal, takhfif or idgham, what about the meanings? Do they change as well?
Yes, the
or
meanings
is just
change
the
as well.
enunciation?
No, sometimes the meanings don't change. Like for example, in ayla hasfi, qawl, and then you say qul, yeah, that changes. Sometimes the meanings don't change, but sometimes the meanings change, yes. But when they do, inshallah, we're going to learn about them in the next, inshallah, lessons, you know, the upcoming lessons, as we learn about the tenses, different kinds of tenses, the present tense, the past tense, and all of that. So one word changes into another. Once you're changing the tenses, the meanings also tend to change. And also, like, for example, from singular to plural, or for example, from masdar, you know, and from an ism, a failed is derived from is. So the meanings tend change, yes, but not always.
Okay.
Right.
Got it. Thank you very much.
Most welcome. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much, Ajahn, and thank you everyone for joining in. Inshallah, our next lecture will be on now Sunday, same time. So all the recordings are being shared. So please do share your comments or inputs or feedbacks or questions on the WhatsApp group so we all can remain engaged. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.